Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Corridor Cast, where we have a great episode for you today. Clint, Jake, and myself are sitting down for a crew cast here where we're going to talk about our experiences growing up and how that affects the children that we now have. We're also going to talk about futuristic junk like cybernetic implants and all that kind of fun things. Also, Clint has come to us today to share a very, very harrowing story of a near fatal experience he had on a set once. And it definitely requires listener discretion, so we will give you a little heads up right before we begin that story. But I would highly recommend sticking around to listen to it because I think everyone learned a lot, and hopefully you will too after listening to it. We have Kutum A Jones here on the podcast.
That's only for the government.
That's
the government.
That's what the government knows you by? No, I know you by that name now.
Yeah, the government sent me. They tried to get me in the draft.
They tried?
They tried.
You put Kutum A Jones?
I didn't put that. The government sent me a letter to address to Kutum A Jones.
Kutum.
It's like this. It's like the worst thing you could possibly send me. I'm not signing up for the draft.
Your draft letter was addressed to Kutum A Jones?
Yes, it was.
I just love how there's a verbal system of communication when it comes to high levels of government. Because I kid you not, I think it's at one point the IRS sent me a letter addressed to Samuel A. Sorsey. Sorsei.
Sorsey.
Sorsey. So I must have said, I said Gorski and they were like, Sorsey? Sorsey?
Sorsey?
Sorsey?
What was that? Did you return to sender?
No, every once in a while it's some weird sub office or something. I forget what it was, but I still get these letters yearly. I don't know what it is. Have you ever gotten a second Kutum A Jones letter?
I've never gotten a second Kutum A Jones letter, but if I did, I would probably frame it, and then the following letters I would just send to the paper shredder.
Well, is it because you had like one of those things where you have to fill in each box with capital letters and you were unclearly right? Like someone tricked you in high school. It's like, hey, sign this form. And you're like, oh, okay.
Like the L and the I were probably a little too close together. You know? So it was like CU.
Yeah, that's funny. Some like shady recruiter at your high school is like, hey, kid.
Well, I actually signed up for the Marines. What?
There you go.
Well, okay, so it was like...
It was the Marines form.
I wanted to be in the Marines so bad since I was a little kid. I was like running around the neighborhood with my freaking toy guns, and, like sneaking up on the front entrance and like watching the cars come in with my binoculars that didn't even
I
work.
have a story about that.
And like, that was my life as a kid, right? And I would build like forts out of camo netting with we'd wake up at 6 a.m. and build forts and whatnot. And
that's great.
After high school, I was like, yeah, let's do it. Marines, let's go. I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, I just want to do video stuff and like make films and tell stories and do the whole creative thing. Like, oh, you could take pictures for us in the military. I was like,
really? That was a conversation that happened?
Yes. Yeah.
So a recruiter or how did this
let's back
happen?
Up here.
How did this happen?
You had already signed up at this point?
I had not signed up. I'd call them and be like, guys, yes.
Okay.
Let's do this.
And so they brought you in or something like that? How did that go after that?
Yeah, it was all through the phone. And he sent me papers. I went through, and it was a while ago. I don't know exactly what happened, but I just remember I was talking to a recruiter for a few weeks, and he kept calling me, and then like I slowly started to realize I'm probably good on this. You know, I'd rather just do film, and this is fun, and this is where life is taking me right now, and I stopped picking up the phone, and he just left me these angry voice messages, and he started to intimidate me. I got all scared from this.
Like what? Like what?
He started making me feel bad. He's like, oh, okay, all right, you're not gonna sign up. I see how it is. You make me waste my time. You waste my time for this. Like, do you want this or not? Okay? And I was like, yo, dude. Like,
on your
chill.
voicemails, he was saying this?
I would pick up, and he'd be like, dude, why did you not pick up the phone? I'm like,
whoa.
I was getting hassled by this recruiter.
No.
And I'm like, I'm good, man. So eventually I just blocked his number. I told him no, and then he kept calling, and I was like, I'm done with this guy. So
that's fascinating.
Maybe he was the guy who sent me the letter. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean,
maybe he was the guy. Maybe.
I mean, like, so, but where do you think this?
He submitted paperwork that said "Kutum A Jones."
Oh God!
And had it sent to your house.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I feel like it's kind of like it's the games, it's the movies, it's the TV stuff, it's all that stuff. You know, you get wrapped up in the culture. Because I had a friend like that in college too, who we played tons of Call of Duty 4 together. You know, and he was studying to get like a medical degree. And at the end of his undergraduate program, he kind of turned to everyone. He's like, guys, I think I've changed my mind. I'm going to become a sniper. And we're like, really? And he's like, yep. And then but this is over the last few months before we graduate. And he starts ordering like these airsoft revolvers and stuff. And I'm like, dude, this is like, you play way too much.
Did he get the TAC glasses for $19.99 on the infomercial?
He didn't. And basically this just went on until he graduated. And then he basically spoke with his parents and they were like, are you serious? Are you kidding me? You're becoming a sniper in the Marines or something, or Navy SEAL? And then basically they set him straight and he finished his medical degree. And
he was going to give up a medical degree for that?
Yeah.
Wow.
The funniest part is you can't choose what you're going to do in the military.
I know.
You take a test, and as far as I understand, you take a test, and then they place you where they need. Like, you can't just be like, I'm gonna be a sniper.
It's like I'm gonna make the funny videos before presentations in the army. That's like that's what you would have done.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so we're gonna attack this base, but first,
yeah,
we have a video presentation by Kutum A Jones.
The more you prove yourself, the more ability you have to choose. But yes, generally you're right.
Yeah.
Did you ever consider that, Jake?
Oh yeah. When I was growing up, for sure. My brother had a T-shirt that was olive drab green, and it had a Marine on it that looked like fucking Popeye, and it said
like a guy with a gun.
No, yeah, he was like, he was like a devil dog, and he and the shirt said "feeling mean like a U.S. Marine." And we used to put that shirt on, and we used to go to Army Surplus and buy the woodland camo.
Dude.
And we used to have face paint. We had face paint. We used to do
Same.
this. We used to do this.
Same.
We were in this development out in the country, and each lot had its own like 2 acres. And so your neighbor's house, you can see your neighbor's house, but it's like way over there.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my brothers and a couple of our neighbors, there was like a squad of like 6 of us. And we used to get all dressed up in full camo with fake rifles. Like
this is me, dude. This is
wooden
me.
Rifles. And we used to go sneak behind our neighbors' houses and climb up into trees and with binoculars spy on them. Just spy on people. That was what we did. We used to just go around the neighborhood and spy on people. And one night, it was the late summer and it was dusk. And we decided that it was going to be a good idea to, instead of doing a rear approach for reconnaissance that night, we were going to do a frontal approach.
It's ballsy.
Yeah, and so the back of these lots was surrounded by trees. It was like a little clear ring in a field where all the houses were built, and it was surrounded by trees. So from the back you were good, but from the front you had to creep through the grass. There was very little coverage, and so we're sneaking up one night. We're crawling and there's like 5 of us, and we're crawling in woodland camo like little 10-year-olds, and we post up behind these trees. And we start spying on our neighbors, and they're having dinner or whatever. I don't know. And all of a sudden, the dad like looks through the window, and he like looks. You can tell that he sees us, and we all get down. We're like, yeah, my brother's like, shh, get down. And we all get super low and freeze, and he opens up the door. And he comes out onto the stoop, and he stands there, and he just puts his arms like this. And he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And no one says a word. He just stands there. He goes, "I'm going to ask you one more time. What the hell are you doing?" And my brother perks up and he goes, "Spying?" He goes, "Not on my property, you're not." And we all get up and just sprint away like a little squad.
Oh my God.
Yep. So yeah, needless to say, that was definitely something that was on my radar. But I got offered a track scholarship to go to the University of Notre Dame. So I took that one.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's almost made it into the army though. Close.
Yeah. I mean,
you were on that path, man. One more step and you would have been shipped off.
Yeah, one time I almost fell out of a tree. Man,
Mm-hmm.
we built forts all over the woods.
Night ops.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you,
Mhm.
I mean, it's weird. Like, do you think you'll let your kids put on camouflage and face paint, go sneaking around?
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's, as long as I could consider it safe and I know like generally where they are and who they're with and, you kind of have to gauge that as a parent, like based upon your kid's development and age.
Yeah, it's weird because now as a new parent as well, it's like you think about things that you did that gave you good experiences, and obviously you want the same for your children.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's like I wonder if sometimes you think about those experiences and it's more like a nostalgia thing, and maybe there were things that you could have improved about it. Or like, is there a way to maybe look through that those experiences with the lens of the present day, so to speak? Because in middle school, high school, running around with like airsoft guns, like in public parks, having airsoft fights, it's like not the most appropriate thing these days, but it was a blast.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd wish my kids the same.
I mean, parenting is weird like that in the sense that it gives you a choice of how you want to present information to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you can choose to present information the same way it was presented to you or not. But yeah, well, for example, the other day, Wendy was at a garage sale and she found this little log with a pistol and like little plastic bottles where it's like a laser.
Mm-hmm.
And when you shoot it at the log, like there's a little thing that pops up and it knocks the bottles off, and it's just like a little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have all these toys from when I was younger, like a little 9mm squirt gun.
Yeah. And
Eliza's playing with them, and you're thinking, well, okay, she doesn't know what that is. Like,
yeah,
is that fine? And you kind of have to judge it contextually. I don't think there's like I know some parents are very anti, and they're like, no guns, no army, no any of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't know if necessarily just drawing bright line rules on stuff like that is the best policy to approach any topic with.
Yeah, it's like, because it's the same thing. It's a weird habit to get into. It's like a kid puts a knight helmet on, and it's like, you are not joining the order, son.
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
right.
They slaughter and massacre.
Yeah, it's also this side of our culture goes back like thousands and thousands of years too. Like the heroize. How do you say that? Basically turning soldiers into heroes.
Yeah, heroism.
Yeah, heroism. Yeah.
Heroism.
So, that's been around forever. Obviously, things changed a little bit through like World War I and World War II, when wars got deadlier, and now with modern day, with people opening up on people in public and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like there's still a place for fun games like that, and for a little bit of it teaches you kind of, you're out there with your friends and you're out playing war, and you fall or you stumble or you get hurt or whatever. It teaches you a little bit about yourself. So I think that part of it's important.
Mm-hmm. Certainly. I mean, I feel like there's a topic that was floating around, and also on the Joe Rogan podcast. It's really relevant. But he had a guest talking about how kids kind of are lacking that free range ability these days because of how protective a lot of parents can be, but also how, I guess, I don't want to say judgmental, but it's almost like a stigma of like even non-parents, what they assume a good parent should be like, so that when you see a child that is out alone, there's that instinct to call the cops or CPS or something, because clearly something's wrong if a child is left unattended somewhere, even at a park, which is not inherently wrong in a lot of neighborhoods. Most neighborhoods, I'd argue.
I think it depends on the park and the age of the kid and what the kid looks like at the time. Do they look distressed? Do they look like they've been out there? Do they look, what kind of clothes do they have on? Like, what's their face look like? What are their emotions? Where is the park? Does it look like there's other people in the park where there's a picnic and there's a kid close by?
Yeah.
Is it in a neighborhood? Is it in an industrial district?
Yeah.
There's all these sort of contextual things that I think you need to take into account when it comes to things like that.
Yeah. What kind of a random question, actually, Clint? What kind of rules did your parents have for you when you were growing up?
I was raised in a Christian household. We went to church every single Sunday. And there was rules. My dad was really, really cool. My dad is the one who got me into music. He was a drummer. He was in a band when he was my age. My dad was the one who got me into like The Matrix and Braveheart and all those sweet movies, like all the movies. And he was the one who like let me watch him play Vice City. I couldn't play it, but I could watch him play it, and then eventually I could play it. So it's like, he was
Vice
in Quake.
City GTA.
Yeah.
So he'd only get to 2 stars on the cops, and then he'd
Sometimes
take
3,
it to the paint
sometimes
shop.
3. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like he was super chill, and like I got spanked as a kid. I would get the belt, or I get the pinch with the twist.
Like the purple nurples? Are we talking?
No,
What are we talking?
no, like just anywhere, dude. My mom would like friggin' like pinch my arm and
It's a pinch and a twist.
twist
Okay,
it, dude.
okay.
The twist.
I never got a pinch and
evil.
twist.
It's a mom technique.
But yeah, I get it though.
It's a grandma technique.
And then when my dad pinched, he would just get the tiniest little piece of skin and just like it's like a bee sting. Like, why? But like rules, man. No nudity. Anytime.
Like you couldn't take your clothes off?
I couldn't take my
Ever.
clothes off. No. Like if there's a like a sex scene in a movie, I would have
Okay.
to close my eyes. If there were nips, I'd have to close my eyes.
Mhm.
Right.
That kind of stuff. And as long as I don't cuss, I can continue watching movies and games with cussing in it. I was that kid outside running around with airsoft guns in the hills, getting
Yeah.
chased by rattlesnakes and
The camo children.
camo children, yeah, crawling through the sewer pipes and the drains and whatnot. That was
Sewer
me
pipes,
for sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Going back to the topic of kids, right?
Mhm.
I would love to have kids one day. I think that's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be really cool. So how do you decide
When
like,
a man and a woman love each other very much.
how does it work? How does it work? No, but like, how are you guys like to your point, Jake? Of like, you can introduce them to something the way you were introduced to it or not.
Yeah.
Like, how are you deciding if that's the one? Like, because I could easily overthink it, where it's like, I don't know if they should, be out running around.
I think the thing that I fall back on is, well, make sure it's balanced, right? Whatever their interaction is with almost anything. I mean, Wendy and I had this conversation about Disney the other night, where she takes her to Disneyland. We watch Disney movies, but then the subject came up of whether or not she could do her hair and dress up like a princess. And I had to, for me, I need to draw the line there.
Really?
Because I think there's a distinction. Well, so that's my first part. I'll get to that in a second. And then the second part is understand. So everything in moderation, and then also understand that your kids are going to be their own people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't always control what they think, do, and say and act. And eventually they'll become their own people, whether you want them to or not. So you have to be comfortable with just giving them the information and then eventually letting them decide.
So why draw the line with the
Disney
what about
thing-
Halloween?
Oh, that's
And also,
yeah.
Like how is that different from dressing up in camouflage and being a camo child?
Yeah.
Right. That's a great question, Sam. I didn't think of that, but I'll give you my answer for Disney, and I'll give you my logic. So, Disney movies are great, right? They have a lot of motivational characters. They have inspirational characters of all different types, of all different backgrounds. But the thing that I think they fail to do a lot of the time is present truth in 99% of situations, because those don't make good stories. If somebody, take Frozen, for example, she goes out to find her sister, Princess Anna goes out to find her sister, and she's with the guy, right? And they're looking around for her, and eventually, they find her, she kicks him out, and then she basically, at the end, she's sick and she's gonna die, and she needs like a kiss to save her, and then they meet on the lake, and it's like they get the kiss and then it's okay. But in 99% of situations, you'd just be dead in that scenario. You know, if like there was some witch with like ice powers and she struck you with an ice bolt and it froze your heart, you'd just die. But that doesn't make for a good story, you know? So there needs to be some sort of like Deus Ex Machina intervention that somehow gives you this closure or this wrapping up of a situation that was previously dangerous and deadly or incorrect.
Yeah.
An incorrect behavior.
Although not to get too far in the weeds, but you know, when you are dealing with a world where there's ice witches shooting bolts, you know, I feel like it's not about dissecting where it has to hit for it to do that. You know.
Take Moana is another example. But in each Disney scenario, in each Disney story, there's always a person that saves the day, by and large. You know, there might be a few outliers, a few exceptions here and there, but there's always somebody that comes in and saves the day despite all odds. And that's not real life.
Are you worried that Eliza is going to...
I'm worried that if we dress her up and we like take her to Disneyland and then all of a sudden she starts to like think, I am one of these characters. My life is really like this. Mm-hmm. And then when they get older and they realize real life isn't like that, they start to attach to that as the only thing in their life that had any sort of comfort and like happiness, rather than just confronting the world for what it is and being like, look, 99% of the time, this is what's going to happen. Don't forget about the 1%, because the 1% is the thing that actually like tells a great story or in society like actually makes progress. But 99% of the time, this is the truth. Okay. And I don't think that Disney ever really acknowledges that. And I just think if you go a little too far down the road, you might start thinking that.
Okay. I think I largely agree. And I mean, but once again, you're clarifying, like, we're talking about like dressing up, not during a costume occasion, like Halloween. Yeah. We're talking about dressing up on Monday.
Yeah, like Monday, you know, Wendy and her mom and Eliza all go to Disneyland, right? Say it's like a random day, right? And they're like, Tuesday, we're going to go to Disneyland because they have annual passes.
Yeah.
And it's like now the kid's dressing up every Monday to go to Disneyland. It's like,
I see.
Where is the line between that and real life?
I totally understand. I think
for me, that's where it was.
And I think that definitely plays into having unrealistic relationship expectations.
Yes, that's
when you become older, because you get very ingrained in a fictional story world. And
you want your life to be a fictional narrative, and it's not.
Well, what about social media then? Like, what if everyone in school has their phones and social media, and she's like, "Come on, Dad, like, give me. I want to fit in like everyone else in school." Mm-hmm. Like, to me, there's a fantasy there in social media. It's like everyone's presenting the best version of themselves.
So yeah, you need some parameters. You know, it's contextual. It depends on how old they are, who their friends are, how mentally developed they are. You know, what kind of social media and how they're interacting with it. Yeah. It's not going to be the same in 15 years as it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, everything I was hearing, it's basically you need to wait until high school, basically, even though that would make many kids insane. But thinking about like, well, seriously, for me, like my worst years in school were 7th through 9th grade. Yeah. Like as far as like bullying, like I got the spitballs, I got my ass kicked, I get all that shit. You know, like it was everything. And then to think about adding social media on top of that, like when I already like was, you know, so wound up and angry and like seeing all these people who have all these friends and groups, and it's like I would have probably lost it, you know. And even knowing for like girls at that age too, when that type of communication is even more weaponized in a way, you know, where guys, you know, would fight in the yard and girls would like, you know, backstab in other ways with less physical means, you know, it's way worse for girls because of that. And so I feel like it's kind of one of those things where you have to like hold off as long as you can until the kid runs away and steals a phone.
Dude, that's an insane predicament to be in, because it's like we didn't have to deal with that. Our parents didn't have to deal with that with us. Like, I'm sure they had other things to deal with.
Yeah.
But this is like the social media, the phones, you know, being like tapped in. That's a whole other element to throw into the mix, and I think it could be very dangerous, because at the end of the day, it's an addiction.
Yeah.
You know, that eventually starts to change the way you think, and the way you act.
Right.
So it's like, I think everything in balance. At the end of the day, it comes back to everything in balance. You know, you have to have some order to it.
I mean, did you like? Well, I guess for example, did you guys communicate on like internet forums when you were in middle school? You guys run into
Instant Messenger.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't really a forum junkie, but actually, a little bit.
Yeah,
wrestling forums.
Okay.
Nice, dude.
Well,
Nice, dude.
well, I mean, I don't know if you experienced it, but like that was kind of, I think, our generation's form of social media at that age, in the sense that we had that anonymized level of communication. And, I mean, you you make a post, you make a comment, and if one person, comes after you, it's like, whew, it's like, oh my God, like, oh, you start questioning your life. Like, is this person smarter than me? Am I stupid? Are they calling me out? It's like even today, you make a YouTube video and you read one negative comment that's like well written, and you're like, oh God, everyone hates me. I let everyone down. It's just like, imagine being in that mind of a 13 or 14-year-old and getting that negative comment, and like how much more poorly you can handle that. And I feel like that's the best way you can really consider.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I don't know if we're more reactionary to that currently, because we will be considered, we'll go down in history as the amateurs of the information age. Like I'm just to make an example. I just finished Dan Carlin's Blueprint for Armageddon podcast, which is incredible, by the way. If you have a chance to listen to it, wow.
Yeah.
Definitely do that. But the point is, when soldiers were first introduced to the battlefields of World War I, they just got slaughtered. Right?
Yeah.
And then people smartened up, they built trenches, and then eventually by the end of World War I, you had open warfare, which was basically where things picked up in World War II. And we're going to go down, our generation, as those first people on the battlefield in World War I, getting slaughtered by information, because we're the first generation that's had to deal with it in mass. And so I think regardless of how we treat it, we're always going to have history is going to look at us with that lens.
That's interesting. Well, it's kind of sounds like what we were talking about with Luke a little bit, where it's like we're in this flux period here where we don't fully understand the consequences and repercussions of how this will affect the day-to-day of society.
Like cigarettes, kind of were.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. But like, how do we handle that and how do we change it? But I think we're certainly in that turning point. Although I mean, I'm curious. It's weird because I don't feel like I'm leading cavalry into machine gun fire by browsing the web right now.
Again, I think it's a balance. Like,
so I'm curious
maybe
to
you
see,
are, man.
Or maybe, I mean, we'll see. We'll see once people learn how to use those machine. Maybe people haven't fully figured out the machine guns yet, or maybe they have.
Well, it's kind of
that's the World War I reference. Anyways,
here's a crazy idea, crazy thought. So eventually, you're gonna be for installing technology in your body, or you're not gonna be for that.
Right.
I think it's gonna get to that point.
Yeah, and like
definitely.
probably,
well, have you heard about Elon Musk's Neuralink?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it was just like him going to be making like a fancy like phone interface, but then he's like, no, it's actually installing a microchip in your brain. It's like, oh.
I know that was going to be like when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was talking about, in 3 months, 4 months, it's coming out. Did it come out?
No, I think he was going to announce it in 3 or 4 months.
Was it announced? Was it?
I think he did, and it was like not even a big announcement. He basically just, but anyways, yeah, it's basically a way to get, it's effectively AI and Wikipedia in your brain at the same time.
Because it's going to come to a point where it's like, you're going to have to choose to do that or to not. And I think that's going to divide the world. People are going to be like, nah, I'm good. And they're just going to be not as smart.
Well, I mean, the interfaces already exist though today. That's the thing. It's like right now
but physically installing something inside it, like that's,
right. But think about it this way, and this is the same way that it's been explained by Musk. But right now you have a phone, you input information into it, it gives you information back.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the interface.
Mm-hmm.
That's the link that you currently have with cybernetics, I guess, or technology, which eventually will become cybernetic right? Right. And all he's saying is like, well, what if you didn't give the information with your fingers? You instead gave it with your brain.
So it's like no big deal then. Like,
Well,
would you guys do that?
It depends on how
Yeah,
practical
definitely.
it is.
You would
I
definitely?
think if it's
I would definitely do it.
if it's controllable, right? You can turn it off. There's a like clear logic link between it where it functions in. Right now, we're thinking about it in like our mind's eye, you
Mhm.
know.
Like if in
But
a perfect world.
Yeah, but it actually functions how it's intended to, in the sense that it doesn't take over your brain, right? It doesn't like just go off. You can control it. You can turn it off, right? All of these different things that are part of it. If it makes it easier for you to interface with what will eventually be the version of your phone,
I don't know. It just scares me, man. It's like you need to have that to become a member, like a working member of society. Like that's just the creepiest.
Well, it
thing.
kills trivia night, that's for sure.
certainly not going to be able to play Jeopardy on my Switch. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that
I
much.
know.
Damn.
What lead actor was in Ghost Ship? And everyone's just like, "What?"
Well, there's already barriers to entry to participating in society, though, Clint. You know, and I think that's
yeah, but
the
when you're
thing.
messing with like,
Yeah, but you're like think about
Would
somebody
you? Will you get that implant?
just to,
my first instinct is no.
Then throw away that Adam Jensen jacket, all right?
Hey, I put it in the freaking
Just
storage closet.
throw it out
It's your guy
in the
it's-
dumpster.
It's already in the prop closet, dude.
Is it because you realized you never wore it?
I never asked for this.
You never... I never asked for this.
That's what it is. That's why they say love is an open door, because love has no barrier to entry, and you can.
It's drafty.
It's drafty in there. It is drafty. It comes and goes.
Sometimes it lets
But-
in all the heat, and sometimes
but-
it lets out all the heat.
You say you want a job, right? You want a job, a job. Well,
Well,
first of all,
Flip burgers. Let's say
First of
flipping
all,
burgers.
just to flip burgers, okay? Like, let's just break this down for a second. You need to be able to show up to a place at the same time and leave at the same time. You need to be able to collect form of payment. You need to be able to do the job, so you need to be able to speak the same language. You need to be able to show up in clean clothes. You need to be able to, like, communicate with the other people around you.
We do that already, though.
Yeah, but
Where are you going with this? Where's this going?
What I'm saying is currently there's already huge barriers to entry to even just getting there. Like from a person, you take a person on the street, you try to get them there. Like we were at Big Bear today.
Well, I
and
mean-
that guy was talking to me because I had that raft.
Yeah.
I had the raft with me.
Yeah, we're trying to swim. We were trying to row boats in Lake Hunter.
He couldn't even speak English to me. He couldn't even communicate to me because his mind was so just gone.
Gone, or did he spoke a different language?
Maybe
he was
his
speaking English, but he wasn't speaking in coherent.
Was he, like, on
sentences to
something?
me.
maybe his
No, he
was his
he was
cybernetic
just
implant glitching.
He clearly had like, obviously like some sort of mental condition, and he was homeless, and he was just standing outside, and he was trying to communicate with me.
I got you.
But his way of communicating with me was just him like acknowledging the fact that I had a raft and thinking it was funny,
Mhm.
the same way that somebody who speaks like Cantonese would communicate that to me, but even less directly. You
Huh.
know, that was our level of communication, even though he was speaking English.
So you're talking about like universal language, like Google Translate in the
No,
head?
I'm just
kind of
saying,
thing?
like you're like I don't think it changes a whole lot to say like, well, now to participate in society, you need a piece of technology because first of all, that thing is going to be super cheap because they're going to want everyone to have it,
Yeah.
right? And then everyone will be using it, so it's I don't know.
It's just not an easy question to answer.
No, it's not. But I don't know.
I want it to be expensive as hell, so I never have to watch an ad in my brain.
Oh God.
Well, that's how it's gonna. How do you think?
I
it's
want
gonna
it to be
paid
super,
for?
super
No,
expensive.
dude.
How do you think it's gonna be paid for?
Probably all the data and like deep dark secrets that it gets to look at.
What about
It's gonna be paid for through ad money.
unless we switch to universal health care of some sort?
Universal mental chip care.
Because it's like it's free for everyone, you know?
But think about it.
It's
though.
not.
I don't
though.
think the
universal anything isn't free for everyone by definition. Someone has to pay for it still.
The problem is, here's the best way I think I could explain a world where they're cheap. Imagine let's say you are watching a movie. That's right. They still exist in 20 years. No one's making them anymore, but they exist. And so you're watching this antique movie from
don't understand the
2019.
plot.
You're watching John Wick 3 with your son, who's finally old enough to watch it. All right,
Okay.
and you've got your cybernetic implant. You watch an actor on
Right,
screen,
right,
and you're
right.
like, "Oh, who was that actor?" And then the chip instantly is going, "Oh, that actor." We're looking it up, and right before the word hits your mind, you get an advertisement for Coca-Cola. It's like it says, "By the way, drink Coke." Anyways,
No,
so
that
the actor
sounds
you were
dystopian and horrible. I would remove that.
the person you were looking for is, well, I mean, but it's, what's the difference? You look it up on your phone, and IMDb pops up,
Well,
and the first thing you see is an ad, and then you scroll down.
I guess let me just take this in a slightly different direction. I think the hardest thing and I think maybe this is what you're getting at, Clint. The hardest thing would be the ability to like not do something, right? Say you like have a bad habit of buying things on Amazon, and you have this chip in your brain, and you think of something, and I see that water bottle, and I go, "That's a cool water bottle. I want that." And you already have a bad habit of buying that thing. Now,
And the chip knows.
in the chip knows, it's like, man, that's where it starts to become a very dangerous territory, because anyone who like pays attention to themselves knows, like, hey, I've got this or I've got that, and there's certain things that I just don't do because I know that it's not good for me, right? For some people, it's alcohol. For some people, it's cigarettes. For some people, it's porn. For some people, it's like accessories or shopping, you know? And everyone has that thing. And I think if the chip, which is this theoretical chip, right, that just exists in everyone, which is totally a futuristic, dystopian, hypothetical, but like if it just does this thing and you can't control it, then like obviously that's not good for anyone.
Yeah, but I don't think this kind of stuff is ever designed with bad intentions necessarily. I think they're designed with good intentions, and are aware of that. It's just usually you just don't want to be in V1 of that chip.
No, I'm not buying
the
V1.
You want to be in V2 after they like iron out those kinks.
Look at Google Glass. That was V1 of AR technology.
Yeah, but
it's also
it was kind of useless. It was basically a smartwatch for your eyeball, and so it was useless. It doesn't matter where you put the smartwatch. But yeah, I mean, it's like I feel like it's easy to joke about the dystopian stuff, but it's like I don't think that's how that would really get realized.
It's kind of like Metal Gear Solid 4, where like all the soldiers have chips, and then Snake is the only one without a chip, and he's like, I go old school, and then like you know, it gets all glitchy, and then they start getting controlled, and he's like, I'm so glad I'm old school, and then like he gets infected and all, and it gets all crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. My brain just goes off. I don't know. I like coming up with dumb stuff like that.
Okay, here's just to piggyback on this current topic. Do you think that extreme opinions, the reason why extreme opinions are so popular today is because with media being the way that it is, it's the first time where you can have such a platform for such an extreme opinion and get it out to as many people. Let me explain a little bit further, because that's not a very good way that I explain that, but let me start over. Right now, people can say anything. And previous to social media, right, you didn't have this ability for everyone to be able to say something. It was like information was curated.
Yeah.
You know? And people that were the people with the extreme opinions would be like the people standing in a park on a soapbox saying the same
They didn't
thing.
have a collective. It was just them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so over time, humans became conditioned to basically, if information is presented to you, whether it's like through media or through in person, like if somebody in person, me and you right here, and I'm telling you my opinion, that opinion that I have is going to have more effect on you than if you just like see it in a magazine, you know, because I'm right here telling it to you. And the same thing that if you're watching a television program and somebody that you recognize is giving you an opinion, you might be more affected by that. But now anyone can do that.
Yeah.
And
well,
so
I think,
you get these people you get the ability to like, people are still in the same sense in the old way attached to opinion. And so someone says something extreme and you're like, hey, that's extreme.
are you talking about like basically information had to go through, I guess, a number of hands before it was presented to the public, and now we're just talking about there's no barrier to entry,
Kind of.
and so that like democratization of communication has kind of led to what is kind of like an ambiguity of truth, because usually if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go tell this to 1 million people, like I'll talk about it with a few other people first, and then we'll put it out there.
That's that's what I mean.
But that hierarchy gets smaller and smaller until it's basically 1 to 2 people, and now they can access. So like when it comes to like fact checking and ethics and journalistic integrity, it's not those things just don't play.
And so
is that what we're talking
about?
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting. I just went the long way, and you cut to it more clearly, and basically.
Well, what do you have to? What do you think about it?
So what I'm saying is, do you think it's true that like if you just have a loud extreme opinion because of the way that the environment is currently,
it's taken as fact.
It's taken as fact. Do you think that's actually happening, or do you think people just like to talk about that because it's something that seems like it could be an explanation?
I think people like to be right and justified in the things they're saying, and they're trying to find people who agree with them and be like, yes, I am validated in everything I say. Because I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be challenged.
Okay,
ever.
So now people want to be right. They also want to feel like people want to feel like they're a part of something, right?
Yes.
So now take that a step further, and do you think that, given how much information and different opinions and different ideas are out there currently, that there's this pulling on the fabric of society effectively? It's pulling apart, and so people are gravitating towards these different ideas to feel like they're still part of like human culture.
Maybe. Well, honestly, here's where I thought this was going, and I thought this was going with the polarization of ideas, and kind of that like incongruity between, like it's the loss of the gray area, so to speak, when it comes to like discussion.
Yeah.
But I thought that was going in the direction of, is that a cause because life is better than ever and people need to find conflict in more things?
Yeah,
basically.
again, I think I'm going the long way to the same
so
question.
If you think about sports teams, 2 teams, basically, it's a metaphor for combat, just in a different way. It's a different set of rules, different constraints, but that's basically it. It's no different than arena battles, etc. But because of, improvement in quality of life, etc., people's innate competitive and combative instincts create or I guess emphasize and exaggerate things that are not large conflicts, but they turn them into big ones because they lack that conflict in their life.
Maybe, yeah. I think that people are generally stressed and anxious, especially today. Like everyone's running around trying to do a million things, trying to feel important, be important, have their voice heard. They need someone else to tell them that they're doing a good job. They need someone else to validate their existence, and like that would be very stressful. So maybe starting arguments or trying to, it's built up energy going in a certain direction. Possibly. I'm not saying like I know, but like maybe that's a thing. I think working out is another way to get rid of that energy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like we're pretty sedentary.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because I think there's a lot of theories surrounding it. Because I think right now, I think the one objective fact, statement, truth that you can kind of point towards is that right now people can be very loud. People can have very loud voices. You can project it out, and I would argue that in the world of opinions and content and news, there's more voices than ever. And so, are we looking at that as maybe the actual cause here? Just there's more content, therefore there's more conflict because there's more opinion out there, and it's just everything has scaled up. Or is there something that's more targeted happening here? Is the content shifting in a certain direction that we're able to kind of pick up on here? Or maybe it's just kind of all in your head too. Does that type of content where there are 2 people on polar ends and polar opposites going at it, is that type of content, I guess, more attractive as a listener or a viewer? So it's like I don't know what right now, if it's an effect or like a symptom or something that's or a misconception, a misperception in a weird way, and it's something I think about very frequently. I don't know.
Well, I think drama is interesting. I think that's why, like, I've never seen an episode of the Kardashians, but that's a reality show, right?
Yeah.
And the whole like dramatic reality show kind of craziness going on with YouTube, people calling people out, drama here and there, like that's interesting. Tabloids, People magazine, all that stuff, like who's got the beef on them? You know, it's like, and then people gravitate towards that stuff. And then like the media probably knows this. They probably got.
They do. Can I tell you guys one of the juiciest pieces of political news that I've ever heard?
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, the newly appointed Speaker of the House, basically disinvited Trump from delivering the State of the Union.
Yeah, she did that.
Isn't that insane?
That's pretty crazy.
Isn't that pretty? Like, basically just saying, hey, don't come here. Don't talk to us. We don't want to give you a platform. We don't like. I think that's some of the juiciest drama, and it would not be created without this like absolute polarization.
Well, she's saying that because the government's shut down.
Well, she is.
So she's saying, "Don't do it while the government's shut down." That's what she was saying.
No, I'm still. It's kind of like a pretty big fu.
Oh yeah, well yeah, like dividing the houses, like they're dividing the branches of government like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's no good. I mean, that's in another way, that's what I was getting at too. Like this information comes from all these different places now. And so do you think that that's having a negative effect in a way because it's tearing the fabric of society apart, you know? Like people used to have information for better or for worse, right? Because the naysayer will always say, well, like if everyone back in the day, 100 years ago, whatever, if everyone came from like this Judeo-Christian background with like X, Y, and Z, and you got your news from all the same places, and you kind of did all the same things as everyone else, which marginalized other people that weren't that, which I understand. And there's value to not just having one opinion, but also at the same time, I also think in opening the floodgates to literally everyone with an opinion about anything, that is also creating this sort of like modern Babel situation where everyone is saying different things, and that's actually tearing down the fabric of communication and common ground.
I mean,
amongst people.
I guess so, but I mean, it's more of. I feel like it's partially you could attribute the death of like monoculture to it. Obviously, when we talk about we have music industries, film industry, entertainment for that matter, like basically mass communication. Obviously that's for entertainment purposes, but happened to the music industry. You have the death of monoculture. There's no like, I guess there's still some quite large bands and rappers out there, but I would say most people's musical tastes are far more diverse
Drake
than ever.
is like the most monoculture musician out there.
It's like
currently.
Drake.
Yeah.
But that's music though. When it comes to like morals and beliefs, that just gets confusing because the way I feel confused. Like, again, I was raised Christian. I was raised to believe, that God exists, that Jesus exists, that Jesus was raised from the dead 3 days after they crucified him.
Right.
He came back and he died for everyone to give everyone a chance, to be saved. Right?
Classic Christian doctrine. Yep.
And that was 20 years of my life. That was every Sunday, go to church and, just learn about Jesus, learn about God. And honestly, like since coming out, moving away from that, physically moving across the United States to a different place, it's like, I don't have to listen to my parents anymore. I do what I want. I do exactly what I want. Exactly. So I stopped going to church. And I was like, well, why am I going to church? Am I going to church for my parents? Am I going to church for me? And I realized like, I'm going to church for my parents. I can't, I shouldn't be doing that. I need to find my own path. I need to find my own way.
Right.
So I stopped going to church and I just start questioning things like what, how and why and what. Dude, I can't even believe what the news is telling me. There's a spin on everything. There's a bias on everything. And everyone has their secret reason as to why I'm telling you this information and we want you to feel this way. Like,
right.
I don't think it's like, 1984, but like there's some creepy stuff. There's some creepy stuff in there currently, like in the news right now. And my dad watches news 24/7, and it's like, dude, that stuff is so dark and depressing.
Yeah.
And I don't watch news at all. I do not. I would rather like not just have that. I don't want to have that.
Right.
I don't want to have that. And I know, yes, it might be stupid. People might call me out on that, but that's just the way I choose to live my life. It's hard to know what is the truth, right? And if it's hard to believe what the news is telling me, how am I supposed to believe what this book says, that was written for so long ago? And then there's all these other religions too that claim that they're the right ones, right? So I'm just confused generally. And then when it's coming to politics and the news, it's just confusion. I just see people fighting. That's all I see. Republicans, Democrats. I hate this side. I hate that side. It's like, why do we even call it? Like, why isn't it just like one group of people and like they have different points about some stuff? And it's like, I think just calling them two different things sets it up so that they're just, I hate that side and I'm not going to vote for that side because they're called Republicans, and then I'm not going to vote for side because they're Democrats. It's like, dang, dude. It's just confusing, man. It's confusing. And I kind of like right now, I've kind of just like,
Right.
it's a lot, dude. It's a lot.
Like,
and I know I have to dig in. I know
they say you're no longer unemployed on your opinion. You're out of the workforce.
What was that?
It's an economic reference. I'm sorry. In economics, yeah. In economics, there's this idea that people that are unemployed are still in the workforce, but they can't find a job. And when people leave the workforce because they eventually give up on finding a job, they are no longer considered unemployed. They're considered out of the workforce.
Oh.
So when they say that unemployment rate is 4%, right? That's 4% of people that are in the workforce still looking for a job. It doesn't consider all the people that are that have given up. Are no longer trying.
I'm curious. Are you familiar of any instances where the unemployment rate goes down due to people leaving the workforce? So it looks like.
Yeah, that could be happening right now. Actually,
you think so?
Yeah. Well, right now we're at this economically. So here's a rebuttal to what I would say, what you were saying, or maybe another opinion on it, and then also to tie into what Sam just asked me. Economic news is actually very enlightening because they can't lie. It's like sports in a way. Did somebody win or lose? And so there's all these parameters, right? But in general, the reason why I watch more economic news than any other form of news, and why I read more economic news than any other form of news, is because there's winners and losers. And in politics, that's not always true. It's usually not true at all. And so to tie into what's going on currently, Sam, we're at this point where no one quite knows if we're in a recession or not. We might be, we might not be. No one seems to know. We just went through this huge 10-year upcycle, and now we're kind of just floating around, and like there's different parameters, and like all the opinions on TV have different opinions about what's going to happen. And the unemployment rate currently is like at one of its lowest. Like the Q4 job numbers came in recently, and they were way high. People had more jobs than anyone thought they were going to have. And so it immediately made me think, like, are more people leaving the workforce because they can't find work? And with more people being contractors than ever before, like, does that mean people are employing themselves more than ever before? I
mean, that's actually something really interesting, because right now we live in a time where you don't need a W-2 salary.
Yeah.
To get by. And there's so many ways. YouTube being one, Uber
right.
one. There are so many things that just are not in that traditional realm of what you would consider employment. If you Uber every day, like how much Ubering do you have to do to be considered an employee or employed, so to speak?
I could be wrong about this, but I don't believe they employ you.
Well, what I'm getting at is that for it to count when it comes to a job number or a census like that.
Well, what would happen is you'd say that you're self-employed, and then the government would look at that number and go, "Great, this guy's got a job.
That makes sense.
He employed himself.
Right.
That's a job."
Well, yeah, you'd be sole proprietor.
Yeah,
or something
so
like
that's
that.
what they would say.
Bills, taxes,
and so even
1099.
though there's like less, there's probably less W-2 jobs out there, but because there's more people doing that, I think they're thinking that people have more jobs than ever before, when I don't think that's necessarily
Yeah,
the
I
case.
think it's people. Yeah, more people are self-employed, but not quite getting by on the same way that they would have before in a more traditional job market.
Our generation
Yeah.
employs itself differently by and large than the generation before it, but I don't know how much the generation before us really realizes that. And so, since they're the ones who are doing most of the numbers
Yeah.
currently, I don't know if there. I think there's a disconnect there, but we'll find out. We'll find out in the next 2 years.
Mm-hmm. We're about to begin Clint's story about his harrowing and near-fatal experience on a film set, and I would definitely say listener discretion is advised, because we are about to talk about near-fatal injuries. There is a little bit of blood. There might be a little bit of gore, and it might not be best for those of you who are squeamish to those types of things. That being said, it's definitely a very profound and life-changing story if you are into that. So here it is.
This is whenever we change topics, this is what we use. Clint, a couple of years ago, you were up in Los Angeles Crest National Forest,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an incident where a man on a motorcycle got severely injured.
I gave you a call
Yeah,
a day after it happened.
Yeah,
I was worried, very worried.
How did explain a little bit about what happened there and how it affected your life?
So new camera came out.
Yeah.
The company contacted me and was like, "Hey, got a new camera. You want to make something cool for it? We'll give you the camera." And I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I decided to do some cool like motorcycle shots up in on the 2 Angeles Crest Highway.
Yeah.
No big deal, right? Just call up some of my friends who enjoy riding motorcycles, and I got 2 people. One of them was a good friend of mine. The other was a friend or an acquaintance of an acquaintance.
Uh-huh.
I didn't know the guy.
Yeah.
So we met in Pasadena, and we decided, hey guys, just want to get some cool shots of you guys riding around. We'll treat it like, I'll cut it together like it's a chase sequence, but I'm just gonna get really cool up close shots. We have a pickup truck. I'll be in the back of the pickup truck, filming with this sweet new stabilizer camera thing.
Yeah.
You guys get essentially as close as you can safely, and I will film you, and I'll let you know. I'll push my hand back if we need you to go back. I'll pull you forward, and we'll only max out at this speed. We're not gonna go 50. We're gonna go 25 or something. That's dangerous, dude. That's super dangerous. That alone, man. So we go up there, and I film one of the riders. Goes well. Before we film, I say, hey, if I ask you guys to do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing, tell me no, and we won't do it.
Yeah.
It was just verbal. There was no written thing. It's not. There's no insurance, there's no production, but it's just like
You guys are just up there to get cool shots. Everyone was there voluntarily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I shoot the first rider. All good. We pull over. We talk about plans for the second rider. He hasn't been filmed yet. And we're setting up a shot where it'd be as if, the shot was basically this. I'm in the pickup truck. We're going like 30, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from out of frame, the motorcycle pulls in from the side and is going the same speed as the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a big ol' side turnoff on the road, and we had that rider positioned at the top of that turnoff. We were going to come around the bend, pass him. As soon as he sees us, he picks up speed. We pass him. He pulls behind us.
Oh, like an on-ramp.
Like an on-ramp, yeah.
You're going on a road, and there's like an on-ramp that then merges in with it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
And the camera's looking backwards. He's facing the camera, and he just pulls up to the same speed as us.
Okay.
That's what we talked about. And so we execute the shot. He's at the top of the turnoff. We come around, pass him at like 30, and he's not moving. We're like, okay, that shot's biffed. But he slowly starts to pick up. Truck is still going. He's a good like 300 feet behind us. He pulls out on the road and starts picking up. And by the time he gets halfway to our car, I'm in the back of this pickup truck filming him getting closer.
It's like 150 meters away at this point.
Yeah. The truck driver slams on the brakes. And I'll get into why he did that in a second. So he slams on the brakes. And at this point, the motorcycle is still picking up speed towards us.
And you're stopped by now.
We're not stopped. No, it happened very fast. We're not stopped. He's picking up speed. And I have footage of it, so I know that 6 seconds passed between the brakes and the collision where he hit the back of the pickup truck. And he did a double front flip over the pickup truck, over my head, and landed face first onto the pavement and slid a good like 10 to 15 feet. And I was just started screaming like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like, screaming.
Yeah.
And at this point, I was at the back of the pickup truck. I had slid to like the window part and boonk. I stand up. I run over to him and he's making this horrible sound, like trying to breathe. And I don't touch him. I'm like pacing, trying to figure out what to do. This guy might be dead. I don't know. We're trying to call 911, but there's no service. So the other motorcyclist flies down the mountain to get service. At this point, Alex DeVecchio shows up randomly. And he's like, what's going on? I explain it.
He wasn't invited to the shoot?
No, he was just there, dude. He just pulled up and then he zipped down the mountain.
On a motorcycle too?
He was on his motorcycle. He was cruising around. He zips down the mountain. And at this point, like, dude, the guy, like, there's blood coming out of his mouth and he's making this horrible, like, sound, like trying to breathe. I'm like, Jacob, dude, you're going to be okay, man. Hang in there. It's going to be chill. It's all good. I was like trying to calm myself down, you know, him at the same time, of course. No reaction from him. He's just in his world. Maybe 5 minutes later, an ambulance pulls up and Alex caught the ambulance, or he caught a tow truck who called. Ambulance came up and they started cutting his pants off and cutting his shirt off. And like, they left his helmet on and, you know, eventually I heard the helicopters come in and they told us they got all the info from us, sent us back. We went to the hospital in Pasadena that he was going to be at. So we're waiting at the hospital. We don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he is a vegetable. We don't know anything. All we know is like we need to wait here at the ER before, for him to get there and figure out what's going on. So, dude, I'm freaking out. At this point. I don't know what to do. I can't calm myself down. And an hour later, maybe 2 hours later of waiting there, we get news that his brain has swelled and is pressing against his skull. And he has all of these blood clots in his brain, and like they have to saw his skull open to like let the brain breathe, or else he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, no, man. They didn't know if he was gonna make it or not. So the next day I call you and I'm like, Jake, here's the situation. I'm prepared to go to jail for I don't know how long because I set up the shot, dude. I set up the shot. It was my
Right.
I felt like I was to blame for this whole thing. So I called you and I was like, dude, what? Like, am I to blame for this?
Yeah.
Am I going to lose all my money? Am I going to be screwed for the rest of my life? Like, and saying it now is kind of like selfish. Like, dude, is the guy going to live?
Yeah.
But I'm also thinking like, am I going to be in jail for how long? And like, am I just going to have to pay him for the rest of my life? So based on what you told me, I kind of got a peace of mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Ended up visiting him 2 weeks later, and he was like swelled up like a balloon. I had to meet his whole family. He wasn't conscious. Like I like went to go hold his hand, and he just was like holding my hand. I was like, dude, like, are you pissed at me? Or like he was out. He was out of it. I didn't know what to think. And dude, meeting his family was the worst, man. It was so bad. It was just the worst situation. So the cops got involved and they got the footage and they were like reviewing it and all this. The truck driver slammed on the brakes because he thought we were gonna pull over to meet the other rider. It's like, no, that was never discussed. And it ended up I didn't talk to him for a year. The rider who's in the hospital. I didn't talk to him for a year. I found out he forgot who his cousins were. He forgot he was like number one top of class Navy Air Force. Forgot all the stuff he learned. He was like recommended by Obama to be at the top, whatever. That got cut off. He couldn't be a part of anything like that anymore. He was like number one engineer, mathematician guy. Shut down. Like it'd be like Ren times friggin' 5, just forgetting everything. Put on like 50, 60 pounds. I was like, dude, this guy's life is friggin' done. And I would check his Facebook every so often, and it'd be like, I'm so mad, I'm so pissed, and like, I'd be like, oh, dude. And so I called him a year later, and I was like, after he called me. I couldn't answer. I just couldn't. I couldn't. A couple weeks passed by. He calls me. I pick up, and we talk for like 2 hours. And basically, he tells me all the things I'm telling you about his state and how he had these crazy dreams, and like he had this dream how he had some crazy dreams, man. and basically, he told me like, dude, it's not your fault. The truck driver hit the brakes. You were just filming it, and like that kind of gave me some closure as to all the things I was feeling about it.
Right.
And to see him posting on Facebook like better than ever now, and like how his life is changed for the better because of his mindset and his approach to everything, and how like nothing's gonna stop him. They told him he'd never walk again, but he's running and like all this. I'm like, dude, that was a close one. That was a freaking close one, dude.
So when did his mindset change? When he contacted you?
It was around that time. It wasn't like a clear like yesterday I was this and today I'm that.
Yeah.
It definitely over time. I still think to this day he's still like coping with it. And that was like 3 years ago in October.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of feelings
So
from that situation.
What did that teach you about life? What did that teach you about yourself?
Well, safety, number one, communication. Let's not do anything unless we're all on the same page about it,
Yeah.
especially if it's dangerous.
Yeah.
Also, let's not do it unless we're working with stunt guys,
Yeah.
who are down for that kind of stuff. Yeah, those are a couple things.
After hearing it, the first thing I feel and think is how you should not take for granted all the things that go right in your life, even if they're small. Whether you're on like us on a film set and we do something where a guy rolls down a hill and thankfully no one rolls onto a rock or whatever, or you drop a knife while cleaning it and it doesn't stab you in the foot or whatever. But like, it's just that you definitely start taking that kind of stuff for granted, like all the near misses that you have, or even the things that you do that are a little, reckless, whether they're big or small. And when you end up for the better, you're like, oh yeah, no big deal. It always happens. But even in this situation, which could have been easily prevented, or like even listening to it, it's like there's multiple points where you think, oh, someone will do something right, or someone won't do something wrong, or, because that keeps happening, but then everything doesn't go the direction you think it will. And it's easy to take that for granted, for sure.
It also made me realize, like, what am I doing, dude? I'm making films. I'm making short films. on the internet.
Yeah.
And this dude almost lost his life, and he's a vegetable for a year, and he can't remember all the stuff he devoted his entire life to. Is it worth it? No. And so yeah, that's just like, dude, not worth, not worth.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I think, well, this ties into something we talked about right before we started the cast, but like, I think one of the only solaces in a situation like that is who's around you in a time like that. Like this guy, hopefully the people around him are one of the reasons why he was able to change his direction a little bit, and hopefully still to this day. But yeah.
It's funny when you well, first we should definitely put like a little listener discretion thing on the front of this thing here, because it's a graphic story. But it's funny. It's actually, there's something funny. There's lightness that comes with the darkness. Because you're like, hey, let's talk about your motorcycle story. And I'm like, oh, this one's going to be a doozy. It's probably going to talk about when Spencer first got his motorcycle license and rented an overpowered motorcycle he'd never ridden, and it was too strong, and then slips on some sand and it lands on his ankle, and everyone had a great time.
Except for Spencer.
The best part
his day got worse and everyone's got better.
The pictures, dude. The pictures, like, you can. So there's a web.
See, it's like, and yeah, motorcycles very dangerous. I think we should know that. But
that's established.
The pictures.
Yeah. So I heard about the story. Like, what happened to Spencer?
So basically, hold big picture here. About a few years back, we did some Harley Davidson classes, got our licenses, and it kind of started getting passed around, and we ended up getting a contact who works at Harley Davidson, who basically was basically sending out loaner bikes.
He's the marketing guy.
He's the marketing. Yeah. So we got loaner bikes for anyone who had a motorcycle license, and basically a big old motorcycle trip got organized with everyone on these loaner motorcycles.
Yeah, the ghoul kids.
The ghoul kids. And Spencer Skoglund, our boy next door, yeah, he biffed it, crushed his ankle or whatever on it with a bike, and was in a cast for a few months.
So just to detail this a little bit further.
Hold on, wait. So I want to hear this thing about the photos.
So I hear the story, and I'm like, dude, what happened? And I'm like freaking out, and then you're like, yeah, it was like on Mulholland or something, where like there's that curve.
There's an infamous turn on Mulholland Freeway called the Snake, because it's so windy, and all the street bikers go up there every weekend to go on the Snake.
It's an advanced
it's
area,
advanced, right? Yeah, but you can go slow and it's fine.
Yeah,
and it's communal, and everyone's kind of there, and people are taking pictures, and it's like, it's kind of a spot where all bikers in SoCal go, and and everyone kind of like shows off a little bit on the Snake.
Yeah. And the photographers are there on the side.
There's like amateur motorcycle photographers like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
or professional for that matter. Who knows?
So,
we don't know.
So we went up the PCH, and we thought, we'll just go up the hill and we'll come back down Mulholland Freeway, and we'll go through the Snake. We'll go slow.
Were you there, Clint, too?
I was not. I just
you weren't actually on the ride? Okay.
No, I was not on the ride. I was hearing this like the next week.
Yeah, and then Spencer was on this. He was on a 1200 Sportster. He'd never been on one before, and he was in the back, and he was following his brother, who was who had his own bike, who was an experienced rider, or more experienced anyway. And so we're spread out single file, right? We're going super slow. We're no one's pushing it. We're going slow. We're on like big old bikes. None of us have ridden together before. It wasn't like we just went up there and we were busting the line.
Because that's what I'm imagining.
No, that's not what happened at all. We were all being super chill, except Spencer was having trouble keeping up with his brother. And so he went down the hill, and I don't know, he hasn't told me this directly, but I think he was trying to keep up a little bit.
Okay.
Rather than just riding his own pace. And we said to everyone before, we're like, we're going on the Snake. It's windy. It's dangerous. Just go slow, ride at your own pace, and enjoy it. Right? Just go as slow as you need to go. That was the rule before we left. Right? Don't try to keep up with other people. And there's a stopping point called the rock store when you get down the snake, and we were all going to stop there, and we all get down there, and then all of a sudden the last 4 guys don't show up. We're like, fuck. What happened? And so Jeremy, the guy who hooked us up with the licenses, rides back up there, and he comes back down, and he's like, Spencer broke his ankle.
Oh,
we're like,
no.
what? What happened? And he was going around a turn too fast, and he slid into the dirt, and he slowed the bike almost entirely down. So the turn's like this. He goes, right? And there's like a rock face here. There's like a sandstone wall here, and there's a cliff on the other side. But he's turning in, so he's like turning into the rock. He goes a little too far, slides into the dirt. The bike comes to a stop, and like right as it comes to a stop, you know, that point where it's supposed to like not fall.
Yeah.
He just went a little too far, and it just went. and his
Oh,
foot,
I know
he
that.
didn't get his foot out in time, and it snapped it.
So
Snapped his ankle.
So I hear the story, and you tell me about the website. There's a website where people post pictures of people coming around the bend.
There are, yeah.
So I look it up, and there's like freaking ZZ Top coming around the corner, freaking speed racer on his speed bike coming around. You got the guy on the freaking the hog, the big old hog with the speakers on the side, coming around. Everyone's having a good old time. And then here comes Spencer, and there's sparks shooting out the back of his freaking motorcycle
Before he even crashed.
His exhaust pipe is scraping on the asphalt. Then there's 3 pictures of everyone. The second picture, he's got rocks shooting out the back tire because he goes too far off the side of the road. And then the third picture, he's crossed over the yellow line into the other lane. And that was it. And then it was like the next person.
Before he even crashed. He crashed on the next turn, dude.
That wasn't even the turn he crashed.
No, that was before. That was like
he didn't learn his lesson from scraping his pipes and flying into oncoming traffic lanes.
like, Spencer!
Oh my god. That's so.
There's no actual documented footage of the crash.
That was all there was.
I'm so sad that we'll never be able to find those photos.
But look, this is
Or wait, can we? I remember trying to look. I remember hearing something like this, but I couldn't find anything.
It'd be deep in the archive.
this is a perfect example of what you were just saying, Sam. It went the right way this time.
It went the right way.
Like we very easily could have been going up the other side. Oh man.
Sorry, I just had to bring that up just to like.
Friggin' funny, dude.
Yeah.
Like, there's no. I mean, that last story is tragic, man, and it's like really messed up, and I feel terrible that you had to go through it, but I'm also, I guess, relieved and I guess proud that you were able to go through it, and that guy was able to go through it and survive and regain control of his life after such like a catastrophic thing, and
You talking about Spencer?
No, I wish. I just want to find that photo of the
3 of them. There's
I want to
like
find this.
frame those.
I want the,
right there. The progress photos.
yeah.
They're somewhere. They're online. They're online somewhere, dude.
Yeah, we might be able to pick those up.
Oh my god.
Well, anyways, so that's the only way we can get out of that, boys.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up.
I think that's the end of the corridors, the corridor crew cast. That's
Yeah.
what we're calling them now.
What we learned is don't take life for granted, and get out there.
Get out there.
Get out there.
Have fun, be safe.
Don't be afraid of the chip.
Be skeptical of this. Don't be peer pressured and get into a cybernetic implant.
Don't let it like if you're getting a surgery.
Don't be Marine Corps into getting a cybernetic implant.
Bro,
Yeah.
we'll slip the chip in. Don't worry about that. Like don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's we also learned it's normal for a young boy to want to join the Marines. Very normal.
I mean, anyone who's
The
played
phase.
any boy who's played Army, I think.
Yeah.
I still have my little army man.
Because you hear about the Army and you're like, oh, the Army's cool. And then somebody's like, well, have you heard of the Marines?
Yeah, you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And then someone's like,
they
"Heard
get
about the
more
SEALs?"
badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
That's funny. All right, well, it's been good talking, guys.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Until
All right.
next time.
Signing off.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Corridor Cast. If you enjoy this episode, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or Google Podcast. Doesn't matter. And if you really especially liked it, consider checking out our Patreon, Corridor Digital, or hop on over to our merch store at corridordigital.store, because every shirt you buy funds great episodes like this and keeps those podcasts coming. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.